Good evening, everyone. I'd like to welcome you to the regularly scheduled meeting of the Apex Town Council, May 16th, 2017. I'd like to call the meeting to order and ask Councilwoman Wilkie if she could bring our invocation tonight.
If you'll bow with me, please. Dear Heavenly Father, we thank you for the many blessings you have given to us, including the blessings of liberty and freedom and the ability to meet here publicly and openly. Please help us tonight and guide us in our decision-making and help us with making the best decisions that will benefit the most people in Apex. Please also be with our men and women that are serving our country at home and abroad. Please keep them safe and help them to know that we're always thinking of them and that they're always in our prayers. We ask all these things in your name as we pray. Amen.
Amen. Please stand with me for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you, everyone. Appreciate you coming. In case you didn't get one, there is an agenda outside. It looks like this. It is stapled together in white. We also have guidelines for speaking at the public hearings. And if you decide you want to do so, you need to sign up on these yellow sheets. They'll be up here for another 5 minutes, and then they will be collected. So please come up and do so if you intend to speak. With that, I'll turn to our first item, which is presentations. Mr. Tom Caldwell of the Parks, Recreation, and Cultural Resources Advisory Committee is going to advise us and update us on the public art policy and plan progress.
All right.
Mr. Caldwell.
Thank you very much. Appreciate you giving me a couple of minutes to talk to you again about public art. I've been here a few times in the past. The first time was back in August of 2015, where I came before the council and talked to you about creating a program around public art. At that time, you asked me to kind of go away and to establish a public art study group and then come back to this council. I did that last June, and at that time brought forward a statement about public art for the town, which you adopted. And I'd like to read that today. The Apex Town Council recognizes the value and importance of public art in the community and is committed to the development of a public art master plan to ensure that future public art opportunities and projects are well integrated into the town's planning process, support economic development, create visual interest, engage the community, and enhance the character of Apex. So that's a very strong statement. I appreciated your support then. And what I did at that point, when you asked me to then develop that master plan, went back to that same study group, and we put together a package of information which should be in the packet that you had for this evening's meeting. So what I want to do today is just kind of walk you through that packet and field any questions you may have, and then ultimately ask for your endorsement or approval of that draft plan, and so that we can move forward with our public art program. Okay? So within the master plan, it actually notes establishing a public art committee, and this committee would be a subcommittee of the Parks and Recreation Cultural Resources Advisory Commission, and that committee would be made up of 7 members who would be appointed by this council, and they would then guide the program going forward under the direction of the council and then in accordance with the guidelines that we've put together. The guidelines go further to state the goals for public art for the town, and just read through those quickly. To energize the character and the identity of Apex, to interact and create visual interest and engage the community, to integrate art into design and development activities, and to encourage economic development. So around these principles is where we put the guidelines together, and working with the planning department, which is also noted in the guidelines on how this committee would work with the planning department. We worked with them to identify locations where public art might be appropriate in the town. And this would be something this committee would also continue to update and work with the planning department on those locations. A few other things that are inside of the guideline are a process for selecting artists, guidelines for those artists, again, so they conform to our principles, and ensuring that this artwork would really enhance the character of town and work with the culture that is Apex. And then outlines for actually selecting the art as well. All of this would ultimately get approved by this council. So this committee, I'm not suggesting, would have authority to then go forward and just select whatever art they felt was appropriate. But they would bring together kind of a short list and make recommendations to this council so you could have ultimate approval. And then finally, it talks in the master plan about options for funding and how we might go about getting funding for this artwork. And so at this time, we're not asking for any funding, really just asking for the establishment of the committee, the adoption of the master plan in the draft form it's in, and basically your authorization to move public art forward within Apex. So with that, I'll just pause and see if you have any questions or comments.
Okay, any questions or comments for Tom? Sorry.
Just a general comment. I think this is great, and it's a great way to add character to our town that we love. I'd encourage as you kind of go forward with this from a funding perspective, to pursue as much private funding as possible for these.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Well, I think other towns are certainly putting up public art, and I've noticed it in the towns, and it certainly kind of brings them together and adds a kind of a quality touch to the town, and I think it's worthwhile.
Okay,
I'm excited about it, I really am. I'm glad that it's moving forward.
all right, thank you. I think with that, Mr. Colwell, I think we've had a chance to look at it. I know for myself, I'd like to probably take another weekend to kind of look through it and see if there's any further feedback, but council, I think we can give town manager some guidelines over the next few days or a week maybe on what next steps might be.
All right.
And then if we need to formalize it, we can bring it up here to formalize the formation of a committee and the adoption of the plan. And you can help us put that on the agenda, right?
Right, that would be required for the council to adopt
Yep.
the plan, and
Yep, all right.
we'll bring
All
it
right,
back to
very
you.
good. Well,
Very
you know how to
good.
get a hold of me. Thank you
Yep.
very much.
Thank you, Tom. All right, that concludes our presentations. It takes us to our consent agenda. Items on the consent agenda are considered routine, and we act upon them in one swoop, one failed motion. And if a council member does want to, however, pull something, they certainly can. That's their prerogative. But with that, I'll ask if there are any motions to remove any items for later discussion, or if there is a motion to approve the consent agenda.
Make a motion that we approve the consent agenda.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed say no. All right, consent agenda is adopted. And with that, before we get into the regular agenda, just for a matter of formality, I'll just recognize that we have 3 council members here today. We did not start with 2 people running late because they have indicated that they were both not going to be here tonight. So for the purposes of a quorum, we do have an established quorum. Our clerk has the full attendance properly. But I just want to state that for the record for anybody who is observing, noticing we have 2 empty chairs. With that, we move to the regular meeting agenda setting. So this is where we review what's in front of us tonight and set the formal agenda for the evening. Are there any changes that anyone needs to make, or is there a motion to approve?
I'll make a motion to approve.
I'll second.
Any further discussion? All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, no. All right, the regular meeting agenda is set as printed. We now move into the public forum time, where we have a note that the public forum is on the first meeting of the month. So that will be in, I think, 3 weeks? Is that the right time frame? All right. So that will be the first meeting in June. We now move to public hearings. Number 1, Amanda Bunce is presenting on Jordan Manor's PUD amendment. This is rezoning 17 CZ06, 121 acres. Bunce.
Good evening. So, like the mayor said, this is Jordan Manors. It's located on the west side of New Hill Olive Chapel Road. And the proposal tonight is to amend the PUD. So the zoning district basically stays the same, but a couple of the PUD conditions are proposed to be amended. This is in the low-density residential land use classification, and the density is not proposed to change, so it remains consistent with the land use map. The properties are currently under development in accordance with the approved construction plans. The applicant conducted a neighborhood meeting on February 28th, and you have that information in your packet. The amendments that are proposed are 2 architectural standards and the front building setback standard in one of the phases. And in your report, I have bolded what is proposed to change to make it easy for you to see. So the first proposal, there is a condition that says single-family homes shall have crawl space or have a raised foundation which at a minimum rises at least 20 inches from the average grade across the front of the house to the finished floor level at the front door, with the exception of the following. Phase 2 can have up to 62 at-grade lots for ranch homes. Phase 3 can have up to 92 at-grade lots for ranch homes. And Phase 4, which is the southern phase, may have up to 31 at-grade lots for ranch homes with slab foundations. The basement foundations are also allowed, that remains the same. And then lots proposed to be at-grade lots for ranch homes shall be identified on the final plat. And then the second amendment is actually at the request of staff that the applicant was in agreement with, and it helps us to basically enforce the standard that whenever there's the rear of home that backs up to a public right-of-way, that adjacent rear roof lines aren't identical, so to have variety when the backs are adjacent to right-of-way. And so we've added language in there to ensure there's a process that makes that enforceable. And then finally, the applicant is proposing to reduce the front yard building setback in Phase 4, and again, that's that southern phase, from 20 feet to 15 feet, but set a garage setback of 20 feet, so we ensure that we have that minimum length of driveway standard, and so the garage setback does not change. Planning staff recommends approval of this rezoning with the conditions as proposed by the applicant. The planning board unanimously recommended approval at their May 8th meeting, and we believe that this is appropriate, the rezoning is appropriate, because it gives more flexibility in the design of the homes and allows a different type of home in the market for people that are needing homes without steps up to the front door. I'll be happy to answer any questions that you may have.
So there are no steps up to the front door, it's absolutely on grade. One step up, I guess, is what they're proposing?
Right, they would be able to eliminate basically the 3 steps up that you typically see. So you would have that at-grade entry. And it applies to basically 100% of phases 2 and 3, which is the northern portion, and about 35 to 40% of phase 4.
%35% of Phase 4?
Approximately.
So there's about 100 houses in Phase 4 then?
In phase 4, there's
90 something.
85.
85. And so it would be all basically 62 and 92 on the other 2 phases?
Correct. It would allow them up to that amount. They could choose to do products with steps, but this gives them the option of selling all at grade.
I'm sorry, was crawl space, I'm assuming if they're not at grade, they have crawl space, right? With the 3 steps up, is that what that?
Well, what they're proposing is that
Slab.
at the front, it would be on slab, so it'd be a straight entry.
So was the non-slab construction something that staff and council proposed at that time? Was it something?
It's one of our standard rezoning conditions that we ask for, is either a raised crawl space or a raised slab foundation, so that we get that stepped entry into the front door. But the request has been, and we're hearing this more often, is that there's a product type for new homes that's not being offered right now, which is that at-grade entry that can serve people that may have mobility issues.
Mhm.
So they're saying that they'll have possibly disability issues for 100% of the 2 phases that they're gonna sell to people. I mean, it just doesn't sound like a mix to me is the problem. It's gonna be all slab on ground, on grade. Which is what I've seen in California when I come from there. I mean, that's a nice cheap way to build houses, basically.
So staff thought that 100% was sufficient. I mean, if our standard is having 3 steps up, you guys felt comfortable with going to 100%?
We reviewed the building elevations and felt comfortable, with the product type that was being offered. So, yes, that's why staff is recommending, approval of the numbers that are proposed by the applicant.
This really deviates from stuff that I've been involved with hearing staff say for the last 20 years, or 15 years, I should say.
It is different, if you'll
I'm just
recall.
really surprised.
Sorry to
I'm
interrupt.
sorry, no.
With the Woodbury subdivision that was approved recently just across New Hill Olive Chapel Road, I believe there was a cap of 30% set at that time when that PUD was approved. So there is a precedent for that, and the applicant can certainly speak to, the market and what they're seeing and what the demands are.
Yeah, it's just, it seems to me it's an opportunity to build less expensive houses also, you know. And 100% on each phase is,
Well, it is 100% of phases 2 and 3, but not of phase 4.
Phase one already complete?
Phase 1 is the amenity center,
Okay.
so that will be built later.
I'm listening.
You good?
I'm listening.
Any other questions?
well, we're not
for
insuring
Amanda?
a mix here, really, we're not. It could be 100, if they're asking for 100% of one type, then there's no guarantee that there's going to be
Do you- Well,
mix. We can get into that after.
yeah, I'm just gonna say,
motion.
Amanda's here to answer any questions we have, if we have any more. Are we good?
I mean, we can ask the developer questions.
I'll invite them up next. Okay, no more questions. Thank you, Amanda. Is the applicant here that wish to speak? If you'd like to say anything, feel free to come on up. It's a public hearing. As the applicant, you can have a few minutes if you'd like to present your case. And no one else has signed up to speak in the public hearing, so feel free. I can open the public hearing formally, but you can take a few minutes if you like.
Okay, good afternoon. Thank you for having me. My name is Kirby LaForce. I'm the VP of Land Acquisition for Meritage Homes in Raleigh, North Carolina. A part of this project is ours, Jordan Manors. Another part of it, Pulte's doing the southern phase. We're doing the 2 phases on the north of the creek, the 100% phases that you guys refer to. Thanks, Amanda, for walking you through what we're proposing. I think the only part that maybe Amanda missed or didn't speak to is we're proposing all ranches. That's why it's an all ranch community. And therefore, that's why there is no proposed mix of foundations within our 2 phases. It's an age-targeted, all-ranch community, targeted toward a demographic that prefers not to have a lot of steps in their home, either from the front entrance or from the garage. Woodbury, which was sort of set the precedent for this opportunity to have at-grade lots, is a 450-lot community. And they're ranch communities. At grade within that is 100% at grade lots for the ranch portion of their community. And so when I work with staff, trying to make an analogy between what we're doing and what has been done or what's been approved at Woodbury, we are a 100% ranch community for our phases. The overall Jordan Manors, Pulte's doing 31 at grade ranch lots on their southern portion. The balance is regular Apex standards, 2-story homes. And then for our phase, which is bifurcated by that creek, will feel like a separate community. We're going to have a pool, cabana, pickleball courts. It's an age-targeted all-ranch community. So that's why it is 100%. And I was working with staff. The question was, well, which family has to have more than one step? Who do you tell that to? And so that's why we approached it this way. That demographic does prefer minimal steps into their home.
All right. Any questions for Mr. LaForce?
Is phase 4 you guys as well, or did you say that Pulte's doing that?
Yes, sir, that's Pulte.
Okay, and we're changing that, the ask is up to 35%?
If that's the correct person, I'll leave it to man, it's 86 lots, they are proposing 31 at-grade ranch home lots.
Do you have anything? Okay. All right, thank you, Mr. LaForce. I've opened the public hearing. No one else has, oh, Mr. LaForce, if you don't mind, could you come sign this so I can get your name and address there? If there's no one else to speak on this, I'll close the public hearing, refer the matter back to council for discussion, and a possible motion.
I do have a question. Amanda, what is the current, I guess, allowable at grade in phase 4? We're asking to increase it to 35%, is that correct?
My math is off. I was just starting to do it. It's less than 30%.
What is it currently now, as it's zoned?
It's all the whole subdivision currently has a standard for the 20 inches of rise.
Okay.
And so the proposal is for, in phase 4, that smaller southern phase, to have 31 of its lots be the at-grade ranch.
Okay.
So I just want to get clear, these will have no steps up whatsoever.
Other than going over the threshold, you know, that is true. And this, like I said, it's, you know, it's supportive for people with issues or who just need an at-grade home, whether they're age targeted or they're younger and have issues, or that's just their desire to have. So there's a variety of reasons why this is a product that staff supports.
So I lived in an at-grade house for a long time, and in terms of stuff getting blown in or stuff like that, it's, you know, it's not as good as a raised floor. But if that's what people really want, who am I to say anything? Especially if it's in the, well, we'll get into that.
Thank you, Amanda. Is there a motion?
I mean, I'm hearing that people do want ranch homes, and I know y'all are hearing that as well. And I understand, I think it would be nicer to have a couple of steps up, but I think we also hear from people that have issues and are in wheelchairs, and, you know, as they're aging, they want to be able to get into their house without having to climb up a lot of stairs. And young people as well.
How old do you think these people would be?
55.
55? Just wanted to know. Thanks.
Your knees start giving out, right?
I've heard that.
Yeah.
Is there a motion?
I think for a ranch-style home, I think it absolutely makes sense. I'm okay with that. I'll make a motion that we approve it.
Okay.
A second.
All right. We have a motion and a second. Any discussion on the motion?
Well, I can stand it. In part because actually a slab house is actually thermodynamically better than a raised floor house. Plus, if it's done right with the plumbing and everything, if it's done right, so you don't have to go get at it, there's less creaking and there's... So, okay, call for the vote.
All right. All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, no. That passes unanimously. And we now move to public hearing number 2. This is rezoning application 17CZ07. This is being presented today by Shelley Mayo.
Good evening. The property in question is located at 2010 Luskin Road. Just to orient you to the project, this is the Summit Church that's currently under construction. If you're coming down Center Street or 1010 and you sit at this stoplight, you can just kind of see it sitting up there on the hill. Lufkin Middle School is here to the east, and over here much further to the east is 55. The property is about 4.83 acres. It currently located on the southern side of Lufkin Road to the east of Tippertie. It was cleared in 2006 for a project that was never completed. There is an existing house at the rear of the site. The applicant conducted a neighborhood meeting on February 7th. No one attended the meeting, but that neighborhood meeting report is in your packet. The purpose of this rezoning is essentially to add uses. The existing zoning, when property was rezoned, limited all of the uses to 2. contractor's office and storage yard, and self-storage. This property is not large enough really for self-storage. As you can see, it's a very long, skinny piece. It makes it very difficult for a number of more intensive uses. So the current owner would like to add additional uses onto that so that he can maximize what he can potentially do with the property, or if he decides to sell it, maximize that potential profit on that. A few of the uses that are being added, the entire list is in your staff report on page 2, but a few of the uses include wholesaling general, retail sales and bulky goods, building supplies wholesale, medical or dental office or clinic, pet services, repair and maintenance general, and warehousing. The applicant also agreed to a condition for, regarding the facade of the building. It's one of our standard architectural conditions. The primary front facade of the main building shall be constructed of one or more of the following materials: brick masonry, decorative concrete block, stone accents, glass, ephes cornices and parapet trim. Ephes or synthetic stucco shall not be used in the first 4 feet above grade and shall be limited only to 25% of each building facade. Also, precast concrete and hardy plank are some of the permitted materials. The planning board heard this on their May 8th meeting and unanimously recommended approval, and planning staff also recommends approval. The proposed zoning, since it doesn't actually change the district, is still in compliance with the 2030 land use plan.
Great, thank you.
If you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
Did he leave any uses out?
We did. We took several uses out,
Okay.
particularly the ones that might have more odorous
Okay.
impacts. Also a few that would have more in the way of debris and or noise associated.
Mulching or something like that?
Yeah. So more of the outdoor manufacturing style
Okay.
kinds.
I'm good.
All right, thank you, Shelley. Is the applicant here? Would you like to speak? She did a great job. All right, very good. With that, we'll open the public hearing, and I see no one signed up for this item, so I don't see anybody jumping up, so I will also close the public hearing, refer the matter back to council.
Make a motion to approve.
I'll second.
Any discussion? All in favor indicate by saying aye. All opposed say no. That passes unanimously. We now go to public hearing number 3. This is a possible motion to adopt an ordinance on the question of annexation for the Don and Sharon Lawrence property, set as the Jordan Point Pump Station. Amanda Bunce is presenting.
So I'm going to review the annexation and the associated rezoning together, but there will need to be 2 separate votes.
Yes, thank you.
So this is a 2.28 acre parcel located on the west side of Horton Road. This is across the street from the Phase 2 portion of the Jordan Point subdivision down in the New Hill community. Currently, the property is owned in Wake County, R80W, and the proposal is to zone the property rural residential. So, let me skip to the rezoning portion. The zoning in the surrounding area is R80W to the northwest and south, and across the street in our jurisdiction is Jordan Point, which is on PUD-CZ. The applicant conducted a neighborhood meeting on February 23rd, and you have that meeting report in your information. The 2030 land use map designates this property primarily as rural density residential, with a little sliver up by Horton Road as low density residential. The proposed rezoning to rural residential is consistent with those land use classifications. This, unlike most of our rezonings, is a straight rezoning. There are no conditions, and staff is recommending approval of both the annexation and the rezoning. The planning board unanimously recommended approval of the rezoning at their May 8th public hearing, and I'll be happy to answer any questions that you may have. I will say that the purpose of the rezoning is for a location for Jordan Point Pump Station number 2, which will serve Phase 2 of the Jordan Point subdivision.
Does that also serve other areas there, I assume, being as it's being pushed out and down?
It does.
Okay.
It will serve a much larger area.
And it's being sized to do so, I assume,
That's
of
correct.
course.
Yes, of
Okay.
course.
All right, any questions, any other questions for Amanda? All right, thank you, Amanda. With that, just as a reminder for everyone, we will be hearing public hearings 3 and 4 at the same time. This is so that we can make a decision on annexation and rezoning. Obviously, we don't want to annex if we're not gonna rezone, so we tentatively want to be consistent with our voting on these two items. With that said, I will open the public hearing for numbers 3 and 4 simultaneously. I don't see anyone who has signed up, but let me just look around the room. Not seeing anyone jumping up. I'll close the public hearing for those items, refer the matter back to council. And I would like a motion or discussion leading to a motion for public hearing number 3 on annexation first.
I'll make a motion
Second.
that we approve.
All right, we have a motion and a second for annexation. Any discussion on the motion? All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, no. All right, that passes unanimously. Now for a motion for the rezoning.
I'll make a motion for rezoning.
Second.
Discussion? All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, no. All right, that passes unanimously as well. So we now move on to public hearing number 5. This is a question of annexation on property known as Ellington Cove, approximately 8 acres. Diane Ken is presenting tonight. Ms. Ken.
Good evening. All right, so let's see. To orient you to this site, this is Ellington Place subdivision. This is an extension of that neighborhood at Ellington Cove. It has been approved as a subdivision, and they are wanting to annex to get public water and sewer. In order to get their construction plan signed, they do need to be annexed. Staff does recommend approval.
Questions?
Just a quick question. They used to have an easement from that, road, and I can't read it from here. That one, they're not annexing that, obviously, so I assume that they're not gonna have a road there.
They're connecting,
They're just gonna connect there, and there
Bay
will be
Lane.
there will be a cul-de-sac. That's right, I already called it cul-de-sac. Okay. Thank you.
I like what you've done with the mouse since the planning board.
Nice IT department helped
Yes.
us get the mouse bigger.
The mouse tracking, that was nice. Yeah, that came up in planning board. You were there. All right, so with that, let me ask, if there's anything else for Diane, otherwise I'll go to public hearing. No? All right, open the public hearing for public hearing number 5, and there's no one that has signed up. Let me look around the room. No one jumping up, so we will close the public hearing, refer the matter back to council.
I'll make a motion to approve.
I'll second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Discussion? All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, no. All right, that passes unanimously. We now move to public hearing number 6. This is a question of annexation for the reserve at Mills Farm. Diane Kim.
Okay, so we were right here, and we're going across the street. This is the senior living facility that was approved on Laura Duncan Road, and they do have an approved major site plan. They would like to get public water and sewer, so they need to be annexed in order to get their construction plan signed. We do recommend approval.
Questions?
Are they gonna be slab on grade?
I'm not sure how, it's multi-story, so however you do that construction is how they will be.
All right. Thank you, Diane. Open the public hearing for number 6, and I don't have anybody signed up. All right, so we will close the public hearing, refer the matter back to council.
I'll
Make a
that.
motion. I'm sorry. Go ahead, Bill.
I'll second.
All right, we got a motion and a second. Discussion? All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, no. All right, that passes unanimously. We now go to public hearing number 7. This is possible motion on proposed amendments for the transportation plan's thoroughfare and collector street plan, consolidating 2 future minor collector streets planned between NC 55 and Smith Road, south of future Jesse Drive. I don't want to steal your thunder, Shannon Cox, but it's a good description, and I think like people want to see transportation problems solved. So please proceed.
Okay, thank you, and good evening. So the proposed amendment is to consolidate two future minor collector streets currently shown on our transportation plan that extend eastward from East William Street. Here's one, which extends all the way to Smith Road, and then the other is right here. So to consolidate those into one major collector street on a revised alignment. So first, to explain the alignment. And this is not the driver for the change, but because we're consolidating these, we have to look at the alignment. So this intersection here is where the Viridia development is planning to have a traffic signal. So that's why we've planned to have this major collector intersect 55 here. We would then plan to swing it north to avoid this dark red, which is the 100-year floodplain. The green is the 500-year floodplain. Then come further south to cross Middle Creek, south of the confluence of the two streams. So you can see my mouse here and here. That's where two branches of the stream come together. So to avoid two stream crossings, we want to be south of that. And then at a rather straight part of the stream. At that point, the alignment would follow what's currently shown on the transportation plan as a minor collector street, all the way to Smith Road. Of course, the alignment is a planning level, could be adjusted depending on when and how this road is built, and the design and permitting process. So to review the differences between a major collector street and a minor collector street, the main differences are that there are no residential driveway restrictions for minor collector streets. Major collector streets are not allowed to be accessed directly by residential driveways. Also, the lane width for minor collector streets is typically 11 feet and 15 feet for major collectors. The right-of-way is the same for both streets, 60 feet. The number of lanes is the same, 2-lane roads. Speed limit is the same, typically 35 miles per hour. Both require sidewalks on both sides at a minimum. So again, the main differences are the residential driveways and the roadway width. So the purpose of this amendment is to provide a higher function roadway, major versus minor, in an area that has limited east to west connections due to the presence of Middle Creek and its extensive floodplain. It's going to be hard to get many connections in this area. This would maximize the benefit of the crossing without requiring additional right-of-way beyond what's already on the transportation plan, because they're both 60 feet of right-of-way. A major collector street would also better serve anticipated future development along 55. The council has not had an opportunity to review the proposed Trinity PUD, but they are proposing commercial and office institutional uses. So if you approve of that PUD, a major collector would better serve those uses. However, staff are recommending this either way, with or without Trinity PUD. Also, let me go to the next. Making this road, which is what we're looking at, a major collector street, we hope would help to alleviate some of the traffic that would otherwise use Colby Chase, which, while designated as a minor collector street, in context, its portions are really rural residential. So this is Colby Chase at Smith Road. Here's a picture of Colby Chase at NC 55. So it has a different context as you traverse the roadway. Get to the right side. Oops, wrong direction. Okay, so just wanted to provide a little bit more of the context of this area and what's currently on our transportation plan and what's been built. So in the Middle Creek Basin between US 1, which is this red line here, and Sunset Lake Road, which is actually just off the map here, there is only one completed direct connection, and that's Lufkin Road. And if you have been in this area recently, Lufkin Road is closed right now at 55, and you can see the traffic that this road carries. This is the backup to get onto 1010 from Lufkin. So it's carrying quite a bit of traffic. Jesse Drive is planned as a major thoroughfare. So this section is complete, although it's not currently 4 lanes, and would be extended all the way to 55. So that's the most important connection in this area, and it's planned to be a 4-lane median divided roadway. We're not suggesting that change. This is the minor collector that we're proposing to upgrade to a major collector street. Here is Colby Chase, which is nearly complete. You can see that there's 2 sections between NC 55 and Smith Road that are not complete but are close. And then this is Reunion Creek Parkway. If you remember, in 2016, this section was downgraded to a minor collector. This was a request from the Reunion Point development, and that was supported by staff because of the context of this area. It's very constrained with 540 and the landfill. So this proposed amendment has been reviewed by Public Works and Transportation, the Police Department, and the Fire Department, and they all support this change. The Planning Board recommended Town Council approval of the amendment in a vote of 5 in favor to 3 against at their May 8th meeting, and planning staff recommend this change as well. I'd be happy to try and answer any questions.
What were the 3 votes against? Why?
There was quite lengthy discussion, and I know that some people will be speaking here, so I can let them explain their position, but there was some misunderstanding or not quite understanding that this is a planning level alignment from the people on DeZola Street, and thought that this road would go right up to their houses, not that it could be adjusted when it's actually built. And I know that some of them also thought it would be a 4-lane roadway. I did have an opportunity to speak with some of the people who came to the planning board meeting and helped to kind of explain this process and the differences between a minor collector and a major collector. And then I do believe that some people will be explaining their reasons tonight.
Okay, thank you.
Real quick, so major collector is still a 2-lane road, it's just 15-foot wide lanes?
Yes, and this is our typical section. So we can deviate from this. You know, sometimes if we're crossing a stream, there's reason to narrow the roadway width. But this is showing typically from back of curb to back of curb, a minor collector street, so back to back, is 27 feet. And a major collector street is 35 feet from back of curb to back of curb.
They both have sidewalks and all that.
Yep.
The right-of-way is 60 feet, that's the same, okay.
That is
right
the
away.
same,
Okay.
yes. So, with a major collector, you're narrowing that grassy area between the sidewalk and the back of the curb so that you're able to keep the same right-of-way for the road.
Anything else for Shannon?
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, thank you, Shannon. With that, I'll open the public hearing, and I see that there are 3 people who have signed up. Josh Beck, please come on up. You're first. Mike Whitehead, and then Alton Richardson. In that. You don't have to. If somebody else wants to go first, that's fine.
I've got more vacation than I do. I'd follow follow along. It makes more sense.
It doesn't matter, it's 3 minutes apiece, whoever speaks, so come on up.
My comments will have to do with what he's gonna talk about this.
Oh, you wanna respond to his comments? Is that what you're saying?
I want more follow-up to what he's talking
Oh,
about.
let him go first.
Let him go first, it's fine.
Didn't mean to get in that.
It's all right.
Hello, Mr. Mayor, members of the council. Thank you for letting me speak tonight. You may be aware that I am the applicant for rezoning that was submitted on April 1st for the Middle Creek Basin for an assemblage of some 180 acres running from the present terminus of Jesse Drive down to Colby Chase. I've been working with various departments of the city, of the town of Apex rather, since the middle of last summer. So we submitted our rezoning application in April. It was found to be incomplete, will be resubmitted in June, but was surprised to find after all this time of working with the town that they've made a road system design after I've been meeting with the town for over 9 months. You know, bear in mind, I have made financial commitments. We have site plans. We've done a lot of work based on your transportation plan at the time. We are sensitive to the transportation need. We know that both 1010 and 55 need help. And our focus has been on trying to get Jesse Drive improved. 4-lane divided median. We have met with the town manager looking for ideas. I've met with other landowners outside my project to work in a participation mode to try to get it built from the Jesse Commons side. It still leaves a gap. I don't know what that gap is, maybe 1,000 feet, Jeff, where a very significant creek crossing. And we're looking at probably a $6 million road all the way from 1010 to 55. It's going to take multiple parties to do that, but I'm willing to be the lead on it and to be a significant contributor even outside the typical obligation. This surprise that came up with the proposed amendment to the transportation plan is we feel like somewhere, we don't know yet, around a $500,000, $700,000 impact to the project. You can't do driveway cuts. You've got to do additional roads to compensate for that, to access these lots. It's an extra road section. I would say we would be willing, we would offer that we could do the design standard, the wider road, but do it with driveway cuts. That would sort of be a split between the two. But my fear is that if it goes through as is, you're going to end up with 2 roads that go to Middle Creek and stop. And you know, Jesse Drive has been in its present state for 20 years. It's very, very expensive crossing. Those creek crossings are probably in the $600,000 to $800,000 range each. There's 2 creeks up on Jesse Drive. Expansive amount of floodplain, a tremendous amount of fill, several 100,000 yards. A couple 100,000 yards for each one. It's a hard job. So I'm saying keep your eye on the ball. I think the main ball ought to be Jesse Drive. We can get that fixed. I think we can come up with a plan to do that. So, but what I asked for tonight is, again, this was a late notice surprise. We have not had a chance to fully evaluate it. We have sent the information to our traffic engineers and are awaiting response from them. So all I ask tonight is that if you could bump it to the next council meeting, we will have our responses from transportation and no more at that time.
Thank you, Mr.
I'm open
Whitehead.
for any questions.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, Josh Beck, are you ready? All right.
Evening, council. My name is Josh Beck, and I live on DeZola Street. I'm one of the houses there that backs up to the Colby Chase development. I do ask that you guys oppose the change to the transportation plan, in as much that we have been working with the developer to get some significant buffer, since we are on larger lots, 4 acres in my sense, just to provide some buffer. And if it impacts him, our driveways are going to have to go onto that major collector anyway, or work with that. So being that we're not a part of his development, we're just working on what those buffers could look like. And so also wanting Jesse Drive to finish through on our end seems to make sense, because that's where a lot of the traffic's going to go. In his plans, he's got a major north-south collector going up to Jesse to get most of his traffic to 55 and not through our neighborhood and down Colby Chase, etc. As well as part of his plan, he'll be finishing out Colby Chase, which has already crossed the creek, so it won't be a creek crossing that we have to worry about. He's already going to finish out Colby, at least in his section. I think it still leaves the 55 part open, but again, our concerns about neighbors living there and being on bigger lots is the impact that a larger road is going to have, or at least a major collector with higher traffic. And again, our driveway's needing to go onto that road regardless, because we're not a part of his subdivision, so we have to have some sort of input on that. Okay?
All right, thank you, Mr. Beck. Alton Richardson?
I would need some help with these maps, if possible. Okay, yeah. The property in this area is what I'm concerned about. This street was not mentioned at all, that I understood, during the presentation. This street that's coming down here, touches or goes across the property of my family. And my concern is where exactly was that street going across? Whether any of our property is going to be condemned to make that street come across, and then what effect it will have on us. And what, you know, we don't know whether, I assume it's not one of the major but minor streets that we talked about before during the committee.
Well, not that this is typically a dialogue, but I want to make sure you've got a correct understanding. First of all, that's a planned street for future, and we are not going to be building a street there until such time as you and everyone who owns those properties sell them to a developer who wants to then develop. When they do that, you guys are gone. Somebody will need to put a street there. We just need to make sure that there's not a street in the future. So that's why we put that on the plan. If you never decide to sell that land, we're not going to go in and put a street in. So to be clear, that's just a plan. Secondly, it can move left or right. Depends on who wants to build it and where they want to build it. That could be 5 years in the future when you sell all your land, or it could be 30 years in the future, or never. Just want to make sure you're clear about that. We are not going to be condemning any land to go build that north-south road. Second thing is that's been on the plan for years, and it just means that somebody's eventually going to want a road there. That's all it means.
Okay.
So it will not affect your land until you decide to either develop it and you want to build a road there, or you decide to sell it.
I just wanted to make sure that my family members, as well as myself, had some input on that property. That property has been in my family well over 100 years. So I want to have a say about what affects our property line, and that's the reason I'm speaking tonight.
Okay. All right. Thank you, Mr. Richardson. Reached the end of the list. Does anybody else want to speak? All right, with that, I'll close the public hearing and ask the council if they have any discussion on the matter.
Can I get some confirmation from staff on the timing of when we let this developer know about the road change? Was that 9 months from the date of his initial submittal that we let him know about this change? Oh, by the way, we want this to be a major instead of a minor?
I actually haven't received a submittal for that project. We have met with Mr. Whitehead and Mr. Roach to talk about the Horton Park project and agree that Jesse Drive is the most important connection in the Middle Creek Basin, and have discussed opportunities to get that done. The concept plan that I saw for Horton Park, and again, we have not received an official submittal yet because of the traffic impact analysis that needs to be done, didn't include the minor collector street. So in the meeting, I raised that there is a minor collector street on the transportation plan that was not shown, and that we've been considering an amendment to actually upgrade that to a major collector street. We first started looking at that with Trinity PUD, and then also just seeing the growth in this area and the traffic that's being carried by existing roads.
Okay.
I look at this is a planning program. It's not chipped in stone. I personally do not like minor collectors with driveways on them, if we can avoid them. Kind of a minor collector is one that went through over here, Vintage Grove and Surrey Meadows. I've brought this up before. We never had people from Vintage Grove come down here and complain about that road, because they had all cul-de-sacs off of it, and I think there was only 2 or 3 at the most houses that actually had driveways on that, basically a collector road. Surrey Meadows, on the other hand, had all their driveways on the collector road, as it is, the minor collector, I think is what you could call it almost. And we saw those folks a lot, asking for speed bumps and everything else. I just personally think that a major collector going across there is a smart thing to do. And I think that if there's development going on there, they can come off of that major collector, have cul-de-sacs or whatever in their own grid, and give people a peace of mind that are living out there and buying any of the houses. Because the major collector is, if it doesn't have driveways, it doesn't have houses facing it, the kids aren't in jeopardy that they could be on a minor collector. I just think this is an excellent plan, the way it's done, with avoiding the wetlands and looping around. And if I may, I would like to make a motion to approve.
Okay, all right. We have a motion. Is there a second?
I'll second it.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion?
Yes, I do want to say that I had a hard time with Reunion Creek Parkway going from a major to a minor. I ultimately changed my mind on that because of the landfill and the very minimal chance that it would be connected all the way through. This area is in desperate need of connections across, and I don't want Colby Chase to be the main drag going through there. It's, as we saw from the pictures, it's a bad area to create a connection through. It's going to ultimately be connected, but I think the more options people have through this new major collector, the future Jesse Drive, I think the better for that area.
All right.
Okay, is there a reason that you guys want to go ahead and do this tonight and not give Mr. Whitehead another opportunity to go back and look at his?
This is a planning document. It's not chipped in stone. I personally, whether it was, is this time or next time, looking at what staff has done, I think you've done an excellent job, staff. And I think the overall plan is the right thing to have in this area.
All right. Okay. Any further discussion? All right, I'll call for the vote. All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, no. All right, that passes unanimously. Thank you very much. That was public hearing number 7. We have no old business, and there is one unfinished business item. Possible motion to enter into an agreement between the town of Apex and the co-working station. Joanna Helms to present. Hello, Ms. Helms.
Hello, Mayor. Good evening, Council. So this item relates to our ongoing efforts to bring co-working space to Apex for the purpose of growing entrepreneurship and bringing business opportunities to the town. The Economic Development Committee, along with staff and town management and town legal counsel, have all been involved in this process. And as you all know, at a previous town council meeting, we had the public hearing on this matter, and at that time, council provided some feedback on the proposal prepared by Co-working Station, who would ultimately be the management arm of this initiative. Therefore, the proposal was revised and was actually put into an agreement, standard agreement form, that formally outlines all the responsibilities and expectations of all the parties. And you have been given that document, and I'd like to just touch on a few items in the agreement, some of which address direct comments from council. On the agreement on the first page, that's basically the kind of the who and the why and the how, but all that language was added to for clarification and for background on the initiative. Again, kind of the who, why, and how. If you look under item number 3 and 4, lease of premises and building renovation, there are time frames now added that talk about the effective date of the lease and the term of the lease, also the effective date of renovations to the facility. So we've got some concrete measurements there on time frames. If you look at item number 8, membership process, metrics, and reporting, All that language in there now added, speaks to, the measuring of activity and the economic impact that this initiative will have on the town. Also under number 8, if you, look at, number A and B, that outlines, all the measurement matrix and will ultimately, culminate into an annual report as noted in item C. And then also the very last paragraph under item 8 does, speak to, if there's any failure to do these, reporting, metrics or measurements, then the town shall have no further obligation, to the, agreement.
Joanna, I'm sorry to interrupt you, but I don't think they have the latest agreement that you're referencing. It's not in the agenda package online. I'm not finding it there. Did you bring printed copies?
I thought.
Am I wrong?
Yeah,
mean, do you
I thought
see
they were.
it? No, you're right. I can print them out.
I'm looking at one, but I didn't get it off the website. I got it from the server.
I thought it was given to council, sorry.
Like for me to print those out?
Yeah.
Yeah, I need them to see it.
Yeah, we'll
I-
No,
Can you confirm you don't have a document?
I can
Okay.
make copies if you need me to real quick, or what you prefer.
I'll do it. I can do it, Lori. I can do it from here.
She's doing it from right there.
Yeah, I can do it from here too.
Oh, look at that.
Either way.
It's
But
the,
I don't
Donna,
think
it's the
so.
version I sent to you this week, yeah.
I just need you guys to actually see the actual agreement
Yeah.
before you approve
That would be
it.
helpful.
You wanna pause this and then take the item of new business and come back?
We can. Let's do that.
Yeah.
All right, that's a good idea.
Okay.
Thanks. All right, we'll move on to, well, our unfinished business will remain unfinished, and we'll go to new business number 1, possible motion approving Center Street Station Master Subdivision Plan. And Shelley Mayo, you ready? No notice on that one.
I am.
All right,
You guys were
you're up.
But I can take care of this.
Mhm.
Okay. So as you mentioned, this is Center Street Station. Y'all voted to approve the rezoning for this project a few months ago. This property is about 7.43 acres. The zoning allowed a maximum of 10 units per acre, but the applicant is actually only doing 6.6 units an acre, which comes to 45. Just to give you an idea, this is the Groves 2, and just like Mr. Jensen said, Surrey Meadows here. There's also the railroad, I can't remember the name of the company, but it's a lumber and building supplies company. And then down here is Investment Boulevard. It is zoned...
Plunkett Park Site,
Hmm?
I think is what they were, right?
Probably. That sounds right. Because it's a long, narrow piece, this is rotated, so north is actually over here to your left, east is up, south is to the right, and west is down. The applicant did conduct a neighborhood meeting on December 22nd. That meeting report is in your staff report. Currently, this property is located on the southern side of Center Street to the west of the Groves 2. There's currently 2 single-family homes and multiple outbuildings on the property. There we go. The property is mostly wooded. Wood line comes to about here, with an intermittent stream running throughout it, right through here. In your staff report are the approved zoning conditions from that rezoning recently. Just want to point out that the RCA on this project actually exceeds what's required by the UDO. The UDO only requires 20%, or in this case, 1.49 acres. 2.3 are being provided. On this colored slide, the darker green is all of the buffers, which do count towards the RCA totals. The lighter green is strict RCA, which is primarily the stream buffers and some wetland areas. The applicant has actually increased the buffers on several sides from the minimum required by the UDO. Along Center Street, the UDO requires a 30-foot type E, which is just our spatial definition, a few trees along the street. And they've increased that to a 30-foot type A buffer, so that'll be our fully opaque look. To the east, where it goes up against, the Grove and this single-family home right here. They've increased that from a 10-foot type B buffer, which is mostly opaque, to the 10-foot type A buffer, which is that fully opaque. Excuse me. They already had very extensive buffer requirements for the south and the west sides, so they did stay with what the UDO requires there. Parks and Rec Advisory Commission did recommend a fee in lieu when they met. This does meet the Apex Transportation Plan and the UDO. Planning Board heard it at their meeting last Monday and recommended unanimous approval, and planning staff also recommends approval of the project as shown. If you have any questions, I'm happy to answer them. The applicant is also here.
Were they gonna build that greenway from the development over to, what is that, investment?
So if you look at page 2 of your staff report, it has the specific wording for that condition. Because there's not actually a greenway on the Greenway Master Plan here, we couldn't require that they build all of it, the connection all the way through. So what they've done is they've provided and will be building the pedestrian connection on their property along with an easement, a public access easement. Also, because it's not on the Greenway Master Plan, it will be HOA maintained. The town can't assess additional fees or provide any kind of credits for that connection. So Parks and Rec preferred that that be HOA maintained, but it will be public access.
To the edge of their property, correct?
To the edge of their property.
Okay.
I spoke to the applicant recently, and they are working with the neighbor to the south to try to get that full connection all the way to investment. Apparently, there's some difficulty. There's a language barrier between the two, and there's been a little bit of difficulty getting that going, but they are working diligently on that.
We also have a sewer easement through there. I think it's 30 feet wide.
It's actually right here.
Yeah. Does it go all the way to Investment Boulevard?
It does. Half of it is on, and that actually had to be obtained by the applicant in order to get connection to this property. Half of it, actually difficult, let me see, here we go. If you can see this dashed line right here, that's the property line. This property is owned by Andy Clark, and this property is the one where they're actually trying to get the greenway, or the pedestrian connection through. Half of that sewer easement is on Mr. Clark's property. The other half of it is on the adjacent, I think it's a vitamin or herbal shop property.
Herbal shop there.
And because this is not a greenway, Public Works prefers that they not co-locate those on top of each other, because they don't want to have to worry about impeding the access if they have to do sewer. They have to fix the sewer in some way.
No.
Typically speaking, if it were a greenway on our parks plan, typically that would be fine. We would expect that those would be overlapped, because the town would be paying for the maintenance of that anyway, in either case. So,
Have we considered doing that, or?
I honestly have not had that conversation with Public Works. I've heard their preference, but there wasn't a push for it at the time.
I hope that we can talk with Public Works, because
I actually have talked with Water Resources. They don't want to see greenway or pedestrian paths on top of the lines in any way. So when the public utility easement's only 20 feet wide and you're going to have a 10-foot path, it can't be in the easement regardless if it's public or private, according to what their preference that they've continuously told our staff.
we have sewers underneath roadways. I don't understand what a greenway path, how different that is than a roadway.
It's a lot less,
It's a lot less trouble, yeah. And the other part of it is, do we need to have the greenway 10 feet? Can we make it 6 feet, and then it doesn't have to lay over their precious pipe, and they can still have access to it if they ever need it? We just don't tear up roads willy-nilly all the time because we don't have a problem with new sewers. This probably would not have a problem for another 40 or 50 years. And at least we would have access from a development to a non-residential area Whether many people take advantage of that, I don't know. I would hope so, as things move along, as we do the live work. But I think as a town, we should be promoting that in every way we can. I would personally, from my standpoint, like to give staff direction that we definitely investigate that.
I'd second that.
Would you like, just to clarify, are you recommending approval with the condition that we do that, or are you asking us to pursue that and then come back again?
We can approve this tonight, in my opinion, but
I understand the direction from council.
Yeah.
Okay.
So let's continue looking at this one, though. I think, so I'd like to jump in here. So I have concerns looking at the site plan that there are two narrow lots that are squeezed between the Groves and this property that don't have connection from the east, south, or north. Unless I'm misreading the street that is the east-west connector between the Groves and Center Street
Are you referring as far as,
Station.
traffic access?
Well, what I'm wondering is those two narrow property lots that are to the east of this property,
Mhm.
if they were, and they should at some point, be developed for residential with this same density, do they have access from any other method besides Center Street?
You're referring to these two right there?
Correct.
Oh, okay, yes.
I'm worried that they're going to be squeezed in there and we will have an undevelopable pocket there because the only access will be off of Center Street, and then you'll have intersection, which is going to lead to traffic problems. But
Mr. Mayor, you're 100% correct. The problem is that if you look here, that was what happened. No, leave it where you had it on the aerial. If you look here, you can see that spite strip got put in with the original Groves. This is a different developer. They don't have control over that
There is-
right of way.
Maybe just.
I agree with you. That's not a good situation. And we actively look for those on projects.
yes,
But unfortunately, it looks like this one got approved with, whether it was intentional or not, sometimes it's not intentional, sometimes it is intentional by the developer.
well, we're right in front of us right now, we've got Center Street Station. Why is there not a stub to the east that could feed, I mean, we haven't approved this one yet, right?
There is, it's Old Grove.
No, I mean, why is there not a stub to the adjacent property that's not part of the Groves?
Did Shannon leave already?
She did.
It's, okay, so it's not required because it's not a landlocked parcel. It's not required by our ordinance. It looks to me like the distance is such that it wouldn't be required to be halfway between Center Street and Old Grove Lane, where the proper access would have been on Old Grove Lane.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I guess it would be possible for us to add a connector street on our transportation plan, and that way, if the two parcels were to come in to be developed, when they negotiate with the HOA of, can you go back, of the original Grove,
I see where you're going.
we would have to condemn if they were not willing to sell it.
So you would say, if these two parcels were to be conjoined for development, then the access would be to the south.
Yes.
And you'd have to make that connection that can't be made now, but that would have to be somehow conditional by amending the transportation plan?
Well, the way, I mean, basically, if we amended the transportation plan, it would be per the previous policy, where if an agreement between the developer and the property owner, which would be the HOA of the Groves, couldn't come to an agreement, you all could use your powers of eminent domain, if it's on the transportation
Right,
plan.
and so let me direct my comments to council for a moment. So these are the kind of things that I know we've made comments. James Street, Bill, James Street, remember
Mhm.
we were
Yeah.
looking at the number of parcels that we were trying to join together and make
force
it.
them to combine them.
Right, and also from a transportation standpoint, you don't want to create a situation where we have to have yet another Center Street access. If that gets developed, it would be better if it were connected via public road to the east or the south, since the west or the south, since the east is not possible because they're existing townhomes. And if this Center Street Station Master Subdivision Plan has no stub to the east but north of Old Grove Lane to these properties, then the south would be the only way to do that. And my concern is that these two, to some degree, these two properties now, the owners of those properties will have a difficult time when they want to sell and develop, because they may have access problems on Center Street due to traffic congestion or the proximity to other intersections. And I remember very specifically when the Groves was being proposed years ago, that the lady who lives right there next to it came right up here in front of all of us and said, "What is this going to do to my property value?" And I can't remember her name for the life of me right now, but she asked that very question. So I want to make sure that if this project doesn't provide an access to these two parcels, which would be the right way, I think, to do it, even though you already have that one there, then we need to make sure we have a plan to get access from Old Grove Lane. And I would caution, if I can, council from approving this without an understanding of how those two, because then that will be an infill that can never happen.
Mhm.
And I don't think we want them to remain oddballs like that. I think long-term, whenever these two property owners want to sell and somebody wants to put a couple more townhomes or whatever there, that they have easy street access to do that, and utilities and everything.
Agree.
So for what we're looking at right now, it would have to be drastically changed if we were going to stub out to one of those properties. It seems to me that the best way to access that property is, like you said, Nate, to come in from the south. Because if you came in from the west, you're still gonna have to have some sort of a road down that line to access any housing, assuming that they wanna put housing on it.
Yeah, I would think that these properties would actually not connect to Center Street when
Yeah.
they're developed for townhomes or whatever is
Dead end
appropriate.
street or a cul-de-sac.
It would be a natural extension of either the Groves here or Center Street Masters.
We'd have to stub the
Station
groves out to the north, basically, is what you're saying, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
At where those houses are,
Mhm.
or where that is. And looking at it, my guess is it's so narrow that they're only gonna have houses on one side. But that's the problem that it is with the properties.
Possibly.
So,
Were those people considered when this property was, bought and the plan made? I mean, did they go to the property owners there to ask to buy their land? I mean, you may not know that, but.
That's something the applicant would actually have to answer. They are here, however.
Okay.
but this was done by Hard Rock originally, I think, if I recall correctly.
I don't know.
And it flipped, I think.
Well,
We'll see. We'll see what takes place.
Yeah, on that note, I seem to remember with that James Street, we actually kicked it back and they went and found another parcel or two to add. And I'm not suggesting that that's happening here, I'm not suggesting that, but I'm wanting to remind us that the bigger picture sometimes needs to enter in. And I think this is one where in and of itself, this master subdivision plan, I think, looks great. But I think taken into context, those parcels right there we need to have a future plan of how that can be developed and be attached to our road infrastructure without creating traffic problems on Center Street.
Mayor, if I may, I'll remind you that the James Street was a rezoning, that this
Yes.
is a subdivision plan
Yes.
stage.
Yes,
So, it's
absolutely.
a different approval.
You're correct.
Okay.
Yes, you're correct. I was using it to set the context, but, with that, maybe I can just ask if council will allow, Diane, just one more thought on a southern access. Can you probably restate if Old Grove Lane, if there is a plan that you think we could put in place so that access to Old Grove Lane from these two parcels is doable, so that we could use whatever authority we have and also the transportation plan in combination, then I think this subdivision plan, maybe we can go ahead and vote on. And if we can't come up with a definitive way to do that, then I think this subdivision needs to address access to those properties.
Okay, so, what we can do, it would have to go through the regular process and be advertised. We can bring a transportation plan amendment to you through the same process that the one earlier today went through. We would notice the two property owners and whoever owns the strip, which I believe would be the HOA, to let them know that you're looking at adding a connector street, in that location. And that way, when those properties, if you approve that, then when those properties go to develop, there would be a requirement that the developer of those properties work with the adjoining property owner to hopefully come up with an agreement.
Yes.
And if they don't, then it would be up to the council at the time to decide whether or not they wanted to use their powers of eminent domain to condemn the little strip there that keeps the property from the public right-of-way. And it's not very wide, it's about a 10-foot strip.
Okay, so in summary, there is a way.
Yes.
You're not saying it would guarantee to pass or pass all the steps, but there is a path.
There is,
to get
yes.
to that.
There is.
I think that's important for us to recognize as council, because at least for me, I don't think I need to make the case, but I would like to see those two parcels developable in the future for whoever owns them without creating another Center Street access. And if that's the path that we can take to make that happen, I would like to recommend to the council that we consider that, and with that in mind, we can consider this subdivision plan as is, without suggesting that there be a connection added where there are currently probably 3 townhouses.
I agree. So what your suggestion is that we add to our transportation plan, basically a stub off of, and we can do that, and then we'll have the authority if we need to at a later date. So I agree, I think that's the right approach to go at this
Yep.
point.
Let me just ask, does any council members disagree with that approach? Do we need a motion, or can we just ask Diane to go that direction? Okay.
Yep.
Sound good?
We're good.
All right, very good.
Good
All right,
catch.
yeah, thank you. So with that as in place, let's now turn our attention back to the subdivision layout. Any further conversation on the technical details of the subdivision plan?
Confirmation, I guess we've given enough direction on that multi-use path, right?
Yes.
Absolutely makes sense. We build roads on top of our infrastructure. I don't understand why a dirt path wouldn't work, but.
Well, it'd be
Sure.
paved. It would be paved.
Paved,
But it's thinner so you can get through quicker.
you tear it up quicker.
Oh, it would be paved, it would not be a.
It's a pedestrian asphalt.
Okay.
Yeah.
Either way, we build roads on top of it, so it shouldn't be much of a.
And I do appreciate that the developer is putting the A buffer along Center Street. I think that's smart.
Absolutely.
The backyards face up to Center Street, it gives them privacy.
Yep.
And I think everybody wins in that one.
Yep.
Absolutely.
Any other discussion, or is there a motion?
Are you the developer?
I'm not the developer, I'm Andy Baker, engineer representing the developer. I was gonna answer your question, I just didn't wanna
Okay.
jump up here and interrupt
Sure.
anybody. They did approach those two properties, they wanted too much money for them, couldn't make that work. I think I actually have a sketch somewhere that shows how we were trying to do that. But we were also gonna have to work with that strip there as well, and we don't have the authority to condemn land, so we
Mhm.
don't have that power. I will point out that a stub from just planned north, there's only about 300 feet from this point to this point here. So introducing another street in the middle here, you wind up with two intersections with less than 150 feet between them.
Well-
I think that causes
well-
you more issues than it solves.
Well, if I may, it's better on a residential street than it is on Center Street, which is about to be, I don't know, 5 lanes?
Sure, I would agree with it. The other thing to consider is when DOT, when they come in and widen Center Street, and we had a comment on this on our side, was that there would be a median somewhere put in Center Street, so you will likely, almost all of these will only have right-in, right-out access at some point. So that also
We
eliminates
just
some
don't
of
need
that.
to exacerbate the problem, that's all.
I understand, I'm just, these properties were,
Yeah.
they were talked to about
And
purchasing.
I don't
that
mean to cut you off here, but I don't think we have a question for you anymore.
Okay.
You've answered the question that was asked, and we're in new business, and I believe we're heading down the path of making a motion to approve this.
I was just here to answer any of the questions that.
Yep.
You might want to sit down real quick.
Yeah,
Just trying to answer the questions, so if you have any more, I'll be glad to answer. If
Okay,
not, I'll
thank you.
sit myself down.
thank you.
Did you make a motion? Anybody make a motion?
I'll make a motion that we approve this.
Second.
All right. We have-
Second.
All right, any further discussion on the motion? All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed say no. All right, that passes unanimously.
Good job.
Yeah, appreciate that, and I didn't mean to cut you off, but I really thought you were about to get across the goal line here, so I didn't want you to spoil that.
That's why there wasn't a street there, and that's what we talked to.
I understand, we got you. All right, thank you, that takes care of new business number 1. Now we will resume unfinished business, 01. And everybody has their hard copy now?
Great.
All right, thank you.
Right, so I just wanted to take a minute to let the council know the items on the agreement that were added and were changed per their comments. So I'll just go through that, and please stop me if you have any questions. But basically, again, the whole first page was added, just again clarifying the who, the why, and the how of co-working space and co-working station. Under item 3, lease of premises, and item 4, building renovation, they now have effective dates for both the lease and the renovations. So that is a measurement that was added to the document. If I don't mention something, it's not changed, so I'm just going over the ones that have changed or added. Item number 8, which is membership policy, metrics, and reporting. There's a lot of good information in that item, and it's basically to measure the activity and the economic impact that this initiative will have. And then those measurements and metrics are outlined in items A and B under 8. And then under C, you'll see that we've added an annual report that will be the culmination of the information gathered. The very last paragraph there under 8 is a sentence added about failure to report those things would basically have the town under no further obligation to continue. So again, another measurement that was put in place. Item number 8 is recapture, and it basically just states that if there's any failure to meet any of the milestones, the town again shall have no further obligation for continued funding or support. So again, another item that was mentioned that we now have written into the document. And then all the following pages were added, and that's just the necessary language as a standard in most contracts that you all see to protect the town and or items that are required by law. And I believe that's the gist of it. I just would like to add that the Economic Development Committee did review this document, this document that you have, and in depth at their last meeting, and they offered their support of. Also want to mention that the representatives of Co-working Station and the building owner are here tonight to share their support and have every intention of making this a success for the long term for the town of Apex.
All right. Questions for Joanna?
I'm going to ask you on record. So the downtown business owners were a little concerned about parking, so will you please address that?
Sure. We did address that with the management company, Co-working Station, and they have offered that they would enter, they have their members that actually come to apply for a space there. And so in their contract or in their lease agreement, they would make mention that the members would be asked to park not on Salem Street, but in an access or an, off of, across from the police station, et cetera. Another one of those lots that are in the general area, but not right there on the main drag so as not to impede business.
Well, if I can add to that, because we had a bit of a conversation about that in committee, patience, obviously, as we, on our CIP plan, that parking garage comes to fruition right over the next couple of years too, so that would be a huge help for downtown, if we can see that all the way through.
Thank you, thank you.
All right, I think we're looking for a possible motion to enter into this agreement.
I'll make a motion that we, approve this.
Second.
All right, discussion?
I'm excited about getting this started in Apex. We've looked at this in depth in the committee, and this has been something that I've wanted to see. Obviously, for 2 years, this is something I kind of brought to the table, and I'm excited to see this come to fruition and provide this to small business owners in Apex. So I'm excited about this.
Yeah, and we did vet this pretty well in the committee, and certainly staff did an excellent job. I'm really satisfied, very happy with the people that are involved with this. You get a good feeling that they're going to certainly live up to the contract and better. So I'm excited also. It's going to be it'll be great for downtown, I'm sure.
Yeah.
We should probably charge a restaurant tax for putting this in. But anyhow, I won't babble on. I know everybody wants to go home. So.
Thank you, Joanna, for your hard work on this.
I agree with him. The co-working stations that I've been to and visited are outstanding. They, you guys know this, y'all talked about it, I'm sure, in your committee. They just create a lot of collaboration with each other, and I think they're great. The ones in Raleigh and Holly Springs are, just give you a lot of energy just going in there as a visitor. So I'm really excited about this downtown. Thank you. Thank y'all for your work on that.
All right, vote. All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, no. All right, that passes unanimously, and I'll make a final parting shot on that one. I think one of the big things about supporting economic development in a place like this, in a situation like this, is so that we can help not just incubate, but also figure out how we capture business and it stays local, right? So Apex is something that we not only incubate, but that we have employers that stick around and hire locally. So to that end, that's the degree that I think this is awesome. If I discover at some point that we're incubating only to see them leave to Research Triangle Park or Raleigh, at some point it's kind of like, why are we helping to support this? I think it's great if it's a good business venture for you guys, right? And that's fine, but from a support perspective, that's why we want to get involved, to try to help promote that. And lastly, I learned a new word, SMOFfice. There are 6 SMOFfices in this, so look it up. All right, with no other business to attend to tonight, I will adjourn the meeting. Thank you, everyone. We are adjourned.